Okay, so looking at those three different types, we leave the social health to those studying sociology and psychology, the mental health certainly to those studying psychology. We're going to focus on the physical health, okay, because that's what biology looks at. Okay, so what we need to look at now is why people get more ill than others, why they're more susceptible than others, and excuse me a moment. Okay, so some people are more susceptible than diseases than others, and we say, well, why is that? So, for example, we could look at the people who play the tuba, and we can find that if we've got a large concentration of people playing the tuba, the more people that play the tuba, it turns out that the more people are losing toes on their left foot. We say, wow, that's a bit amazing. There's another one. So, for example, the amount of, the temperature reached in a lake in the Lake District, so the temperature in the Lake District, amazingly enough, looks exactly the same. So, it goes up and down and up and down. That graph looks exactly the same as people dying from heart disease in Alaska. Wow, I wonder how the temperature in the Lake District affects people with heart disease in Alaska. If you Google this, there's so many correlation graphs which have nothing to do with each other. The temperature of the Lake District doesn't affect people having heart attacks in Alaska. It can't do, but it so happens that the two graphs look the same. And as scientists, we have to say, does one thing actually affect the other? Now, there was a really interesting article in one of the newspapers that a friend showed me, and it was that smokers are less likely to get COVID-19. And people have, is that a reason to take up smoking? Was the newspaper person paid by the tobacco industry to publish that? We don't know. But we can say that people who don't smoke don't often like the smell of cigarette smoke and therefore probably stay further away from smokers. Maybe that automatic social distancing is helping. Other studies have found, though, that if you are a smoker and you do get this illness, then you are 14 times more likely to die from it. So we've got to run up the risks, less likely to catch it, more likely to die from it, which is better. Okay, sorry, just stop another second. Okay, sorry about that. As you may have guessed, my physical health isn't doing that well at the moment. It's just a bit of hay fever, nothing to worry about. Okay, so we've looked at the fact that correlation, and I'm going to write that down. We've not actually got it written down, so hang on a second, just pause the video. Okay, so correlation and causation. Correlation is when one thing looks very similar to another. And so it's just like my made up graph of, so if we had, sorry, I'm doing this upside down, temperature in degrees C of the Lake District, and here we have deaths in, this is made up by the way, there are lots of actual ones on the internet. Deaths in Alaska. Okay, so you might have, I don't know, we'll go for 1900 there, 1905, 1910, 1915. So the temperature would be low in the winter, high in the summer, low, high. So we've got 5 years. So this would be 100, 19, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so the temperature would look like that. This is really not to scale. And then using a different colour, deaths in Alaska might look like this. And so it's following it really closely. And we'd say, wow, it's got something to do with it, but it doesn't. Just because there's a correlation, just because the numbers are the same, so let's write that down. Numbers sorry, having a bit of difficulty focusing it here. Same. Okay, correlation, the numbers are the same, but it doesn't actually mean that they've anything to do with the other one. And causation, as you can see, cause, something has caused it. Okay, so the temperature might have caused the deaths. Okay, so they are related. Okay, now these two words do not appear on the keyword sheet and everything that you're supposed to be able to do. This is what I've also sent with you with the lesson plan. The keywords aren't on there, so it's worth knowing those two as well. The other thing that I didn't, so I'll come back to it actually. So correlation, the numbers are the same, but they've got nothing to do with each other. Causation, it's related. One thing has caused the other. So, for example, you might have a genetic disease, a non-communicable disease. It just means you can't pass it on to your mates. Like diabetes. If you have diabetes, you are more likely to have various other illnesses. That's a causation. Okay, the diabetes is causing you to have another thing, another complication. Okay, so people who have something like HIV or COPD or heart disease, okay, so things that reduce the immune system or already give you problems with your circulatory system, be that breathing or with your heart, okay, there's a causation. If you've got that, if you get COVID-19, it's going to be worse. So diabetes and heart disease, you can't give them to your mates. They're non-communicable. COVID-19, flu, measles, chickenpox, everything like that is passable to your friends. It's communicable. And there's a causation here. If you've got heart disease, you will be worse affected by COVID-19. So that's an example of causation. Now, one of the joys of being at home is that I get to share some of my favourite books with you. That doesn't often happen, but this one's called The Language of the Genes by Steve Jones, and he's got an amazing chapter in it called The Deadly Fevers. If you can get yourself a copy of it, it's well worth a read. And it goes on to explain that the population of Mexico dropped from 25 million to 1 million between 1500 and 1600. Okay, that is a bit of a drop. And that is because, he goes on to say, of the communicable diseases. So that is because of things like malaria, smallpox and typhus. So these killers were brought from Europe over to the US. Let's do it the right way around for you. So they came from Europe to the US, and not just the US, to all the Americas. And they killed off all the natives there. So Mexico obviously isn't in the US, but a lot of the Native Americans were killed by disease that were brought over from the Europeans that we were less susceptible to because we've built up an immunity to, and we'll learn more about that later. So there are predictions that various things cause things to drop. He also talks very interestingly about the various Asian flus that happen. Now, this book is very old, but he does go on to say about the ones that originate on Chinese farms. So every few years, one strain will attack millions of people and then disappears again. And we've seen it happen a few times over the last few years. This one is one of the latest ones. Not quite sure why the mutation starts over there. That would be a really interesting thing to find out. Is that a positive correlation, as in it starts over there because of something that's happening, or just a random correlation? So it starts over there. Maybe it could start anywhere. There's just more livestock in close contact with humans over there. Who knows? It's fascinating. So just thought I would share that with you because it all gets to be quite interesting. So as I said, correlation, numbers are the same, but they don't always mean the same things. That's just a correlation. A positive correlation is when it actually does mean something. Okay, so if you've got a positive correlation, you have got, for example, something like if you've got heart disease, you are more likely to have tooth problems. We know that's a correlation. And because heart disease often comes quite later in life, we believe it's a positive correlation. We believe that the heart disease has something to do with the plaque on the teeth. It's really interesting. I don't actually know why. Maybe we could research that. Okay, so that is the main things I wanted to go through. I will just write down communicable and non-communicable for you. So we'll pause the video and we'll go back to this. Okay, so last bit of stuff that you need to know. Communicable means that you can pass it on. This is your virus, this is your bacteria, this is all sorts of nasties. And it affects young people. Okay, it affects you guys more because your immune system hasn't seen it before, hasn't built up to it. Maybe you're not vaccinated against it, but as well, young people go out and see each other a lot more. Young people, I've got two very little ones. They're coming up to people, they're hugging them, they're kissing them, they're touching them all the time. They're going to pass on diseases. I have also sent you a link to the lovely, lovely Coughs and Sneezes Spread Diseases video, which explains that people at work also get these because they're in close confines with people. That was a public health video from many years ago. Do browse the archives, they're ever so fun, but not right now because we've got a lesson to finish off. Non-communicable means that this is due to your genes. So this is things like your diabetes. And it can also be due to your lifestyle. So I might have a gene for heart disease, for example, because my dad's had a couple of heart attacks. His dad died from heart disease. But after my dad's dad died, he changed his lifestyle, looked at his diet and his exercise, which meant he was able to better survive his heart attack. I'm also looking at my lifestyle, my exercise, what fatty foods I eat, because you know what, I would quite like to live for a little bit longer as well. So it's non-communicable. I can't give it to my mates. I've got genes for it, probably, but my lifestyle can also affect it. Okay, and this also affects older people. The older you are, the more likely your genes are going to kick in with something wrong, be that heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's, anything like that. It's more likely to happen as you're older. So communicable happens to the young, non-communicable usually kicks in or usually affects you more as you get older. And the last one, we talked about correlation earlier, the numbers were the same. Positive correlation is a case of one thing leading to another. So it could be a case of you have something which weakens your immune system, like the human immunodeficiency virus, HIV, which leads to AIDS, which is acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. If you've got something like that, then you are more likely to get ill from other illnesses because your immune system doesn't work as well. Same with, well, there's lots of other things. One thing can lead to another because you've got one illness which is going to affect the other one. Okay, so what I've done is I have sent you, not only the link to these two videos, but I've sent you the link to the Coughs and Sneezes video, which is great fun, and I've also sent you a couple of worksheets to do. These should be a lot easier than the ones we've been doing previously. One of them is drawing quite a few graphs. I would try and do it in Excel if you don't have any squared paper or graph paper, and you can use a computer. if you struggle with the graph drawing, just sketch it like I sketched the one here, just have a rough idea. And as always, if you can't do one sheet, try the other one. Do your best. Get in touch with me if there's any problems. Let me know. I am here to help as much as possible. Stay safe and hopefully see you soon, Year 10.